In a horrifying turn of recent events, a piece of legislation was proposed just a few weeks ago by Secretary Daniels. This measure would make the use and study of certain types of wireless transmission illegal for the commercial and private sectors. Only the government and the military will be allowed to use these technologies under the passage of this act. Secretary Daniels has made his appeal to the Senate and House of Representatives with sincere conviction, and it may have been convincing enough to sway both the House and the Senate. He fears that it would create catastrophic dangers to the public if everyone has access to radio communications. The art of electricity is still new. The art of wireless electricity is even younger by comparison. Even the experts have no conception of its ultimate possibilities. For this and several other reasons, I very much disagree with Secretary Daniels' sentiments. The Great War was a calamity. I understand his fear that enemies would somehow take this technology and create a devastating weapon, but I see no reason to believe this. It is obvious to me that the benefits will outweigh the consequences, and I see little potential for negative effects at all. In fact, there has never been an invention so beneficial to society as wireless transmission. It would be absurd to keep it away from the masses. History has shown us time and time again that competition creates the ideal situation for consumers, giving them more options at a cheaper price. A government monopoly will only slow the evolution of wireless technology. This paranoia is irrational and ill-founded. Then again, it must be understood that this wonderful art has been, in its entirety, evolved here and can be called American, with more right and propriety than the telephone, the incandescent lamp, and the aeroplane. Enterprising press agents and stock jabbers have been so successful in spreading misinformation that even so excellent a periodical as the Scientific American accords the chief credit to a foreign country. The Germans, of course, gave us the Hertz wave, and the Russians, English, French, and Italian experts were quick in using them for signaling purposes. Thus, the telegraph was born. It was an obvious application of the new agent and accomplished with the old classical and unimproved induction coil, scarcely anything more than another kind of trick using old methods. The radius of transmission was very limited, the result attained of very little value, and the Hertz oscillations as means of conveying intelligence could have been advantageously replaced by sound waves, which I advocated in 1891. Moreover, all these attempts were made 3 years after the basic principles of the wireless system, which is universally employed today, and its potential instrumentalities had been clearly described and developed in America. No trace of those Hertzian appliances and methods remains today. We have proceeded in the very opposite direction, and what has been done is the product of the brains and efforts of citizens of this country. The fundamental patents have expired and the opportunities are opened to all. The chief argument of the Secretary Daniels is based on interference. According to his statement reported in the New York Herald of July 29, 1919, signals from a powerful station can be intercepted in every village in the world. In view of this fact, which was demonstrated in my experiments in 1900, it would be of little use to impose restrictions in the United States. Recently, a shady character approached me with an attempt of enlisting my services in the construction of a world transmitter in some distant land. "We have no money," he said, "but carloads of solid gold, and we will give you a liberal amount." I told him that I wanted to see first what will be done with my inventions in America, and this ended the interview. Passing a law to restrict the use of radio transmission and other wireless communications may please the Democrats, but I am satisfied that some dark forces are at work, regardless of the laws. As time goes on, the maintenance of continuous communication will be rendered more difficult. The only remedy is a system immune against interruption. It has been perfected, it exists, and all that is necessary is to put it in operation. My research in Colorado and my tower at Long Island was the first step towards this great future of many possibilities. This colossal war has just ended, and threat of violence still hangs in the air. The fear of this technology is nonsense because it would only improve our national defense. This is most true particularly in connection with teleautomatics. Just like the remote-controlled toy submarine I created, a full-scale warship could be controlled at a remote distance. For a while, I really thought that this invention of mine would abolish war, because of its unlimited destructiveness and for the ability it would create in replacing human foot soldiers with machines. Although I still see much promise in this invention for its potential to improve the world, my views have since changed. Technology alone will not end war. The social conditions that caused war must be solved before any threat of violence is to be nullified. When there are enough resources to share among all nations, it will drastically reduce any threat of war. Electric energy has become a resource like any other, and the ability to distribute large amounts of it to all people will likely be a large step towards world peace. The true problem of war and violence is that it is the nature of man. All over the earth, we must strive for the elimination of that fanatic devotion of exalted ideas of national egoism and pride. Superstition and bigotry are the birth parents of large-scale human violence. No vote, no politician, no union, no law, and no social movement of any kind will ever pacify the brutal nature of the world. Peace can only come as a natural consequence of universal enlightenment and the merging of races, and we are still far from this blissful realization. Religious zealotry is one primal cause of war, but it will be many years before the followers of Christ, Muhammad, and the Jewish peoples can accept that they worship the same God of Abraham. The Eastern story of Krishna is alike to the story of Christ. We are all one people, and we serve the same God. As I view the world today in light of the gigantic struggle we have witnessed, I am filled with conviction that the interest of humanity would be best served if the United States would remain true to its traditions, true to God, and kept out of entangling alliances, as the Founding Fathers warned. Situated as it is geographically remote from the theaters of impending conflicts, without incentive to territorial aggrandizement, with an inexhaustible resources and immense population, thoroughly imbued with the spirit of liberty and justice, this country is placed in a unique and privileged position. It is thus able to exert independently its colossal strength and moral force to the benefit of all, more judiciously and effectively than as a member of a league. I have told you about my strange medical condition of hallucinations that has affected me since my childhood. This strange ailment was at first involuntary, and gradually became second nature and led me finally to recognize that I was but an automation, devoid of free will, and in thought and action and merely responsible to the forces of the immediately surrounding environment. We are a creature that has evolved slowly for countless generations. Charles Darwin's observations are succinct in showing us this. Our senses are delicately calibrated to be very strong. But we are so complicated that most people have lost connection to the avatar of their body. They live only within the realm of lofty ideas, impractical and romantic, wishful thinking that bears little resemblance to reality. It is hard for the average person to grasp this fact. As a scientist and a seeker of truth, I am convinced of the philosophy and the mechanism which was propounded by Descartes 300 years ago. Although men in Descartes' time did not have a strong understanding of biology, his ideas still remain true. Now, we have a much better understanding of the construction and operation of the human eye, for example. Yet I see the reflection of Descartes' rationalist approach in Darwin's theory. Each generation of thinkers has further advanced our connection to the truth, one step at a time. In recent years, the scientific research in these fields has been such as to leave no room for doubt as to whether or not they are true. Félix Ledantec, for example, has performed some of my favorite work in biology for his experiments showing the directional growth of plant life in response to sunlight. Everything seems to become one with its surroundings. Although educated people understand all of these ideas to be truth, the average person still does not. I see these realities clearly with every act and thought of mine. A firm concentration on the many influences that affect my mood and decision-making is ever present in my mind. I can generally account for any of my thoughts by locating the original impulse in the body that created them. The by far greater number of human beings are never aware of their own highly impressionable nature, nor can they feel their own body with an acute awareness. Because of this, millions of people have developed bad habits that make them sick or give them chronic pain, even leading them to an early death when they could have lived a long and healthy life. They have no concept for how the world around them continually functions to affect them. For these unfortunate people, they are completely lost for knowledge on how to maintain their own health. The most common everyday occurrences appear to them mysterious and inexplicable. One may feel a sudden wave of sadness and rack his brain for an explanation when he might have noticed that it was caused by a cloud cutting off the rays of the sun. Deficient observation is merely a form of ignorance, one of many which is responsible for the many morbid notions and foolish ideas prevailing. Idiocy and willful ignorance are rampant in our society. In fact, I would propose there is not more than 1 out of every 10 persons who does not believe in telepathy or some other psychic manifestations, spiritualism, or other beliefs, whereby it would seem that an otherwise rational person proves to be completely unreasonable. What's worse, the majority of people seem to be captivated by talk of the supernatural.